My name is Tom Sherman. I'm a professor of art video at Syracuse University in the Department of Transmedia. I basically teach people how to use video to make art. I'm always trying to explain that video technology evolved from tape recorders. It evolved from wire recorders, then plastic-based reel-to-reel audio recorders. That technology, that audio technology, eventually carried pictures. And so the simultaneous recording of acoustic and visual space, audio-visual space, is video's domain. You know, film was really a still technology. It was still photography that moved at 24 frames per second. You know, audio was added much later. It was kind of crappy. You know, there was a whole history of adding sound to, photographic imagery in cinema.
For use as part of a talking picture, the sound to accompany the photographed action must be recorded for reproduction when the picture is shown.
With video, the difference, of course, was the vitality of having that acoustic and visual base simultaneously recorded on the same substrate. That's why video has always had this reality base to it.
Yes, thanks to television, that marvel of modern science, even our unfortunate friend and millions of other people can sit back in the comfort of their own homes and enjoy.
In my lifetime, I mean, television was the technology in that age. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and television was something that was a control structure that you didn't have access to. When it became portable, you didn't need a studio, and you didn't need a massive amount of equipment. So the idea that you now had access and you could talk back to television was a tremendous advantage for artists.
It puts a distance between the words and their apprehension.
The first portable equipment was generally the Sony Porta-Pack. That was the first battery-operated analog recording system. It allowed you to go out into the world, into the environment. So it was very attractive to not only artists, but to people who wanted to change the social economic conditions that they were in. So activists really used it.
You might actually get the chance to meet with Jimmy Carter right now. Check him out. Show you cable TV viewers another glimpse, another image.
It was so beautifully precise and explicit, low cost, bare bones, and it really was good for transmitting ideas. And you see the power of that today with, phone videos of disasters, shootings, this tremendous vitality that video has for precisely documenting the evidence of what occurred. There's no technology like video for essentially establishing the place and what happened. The first Porta-Packs were, the Sony Porta-Pack was actually marketed in the spring of 1967. And there had been the idea of portable video before that, and I've heard tell of other brands like Norelco had a portable machine out, but the Sony machine was pretty rigorous and pretty strong and a pretty major brand launch. In the 70s, when you worked with video, it was very physical because the equipment weighed a ton. Sony Porta-Packs were reel-to-reel machines that had spools of tape that was 1,200 feet long. It ran at 7.5 inches per second across these helical scan heads. Very limited, it was very heavy. You couldn't run with the technology. There were a lot of tracking inconsistencies and things like that. The Porta-Pack really had a lifespan of a couple of years, max, because they were tube-based cameras. They had a photosensitive tube, And if you pointed them at the sun or pointed them at a bright light, they burned so that they had a dark spot that would go on the image. And the only way you could get the image to be refreshed was to freeze the Vidicon. So you'd put your camera in the freezer and time it. So you'd put your camera in your freezer for 20 minutes, and it would reduce the sensitivity of the tube, and that would allow you to see again without those dots. But you can only do that a couple of times. So there was a real obsolescence to these machines. You know, Marshall McLuhan said that the instant replay was the most powerful invention of the 20th century. He was fascinated with it, and rightfully so, because what happens when you have access to an immediate image, an immediate replay, is it really makes you conscious of your perceptual activity. It does remarkable things to your memory. It gives you a remarkable sense of focus and attention. If people had a Porta-Pack at the time, you know, in the early 70s, it was kind of like an atomic bomb perceptually. You know, if you had one under your bed and you could, you know, tape your sex and then play it back, and, you know, you could learn and change really quickly. And, you know, again, that was something that was revolutionary at the time. There was no other experience like it. We thought that by making alternatives to television with video art, we would put it on television and the whole thing would crumble. But in fact, the conventions were so powerful, we had really no effect. But what we didn't realize was the engineers themselves and the technology itself would decentralize, almost like a living thing. And all of our goals would be accomplished. We would be able to have our own transmission points, you know, when digital technology came along, et cetera. I think that you really do see in the new environment, you do see that decentralized voice, the distribution of authorship. So we see that type of thing happening with a full network digital system where we have video flying around, files being shared, you know, all of this stuff. But I would have never imagined that within a period of time, like 40 years, that you would see such a wide distribution of video. When you look at YouTube and you see personal expression, or you see people grooming their identities through Facebook, those are activities that were limited really to artists for a long time, you know? And now that freedom is there. And of course, now it's a greater challenge to be creative with the technology, given that it's so widespread.